do, what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, this is the Peace Dealer, and I'm most definitely very excited for this next segment that we have for today. Of course, happy new moon in Libra. Shout out to those of you who are watching this far beyond the time it's live. I do set the intention and have a really profound feeling and belief that the contents in this video are most definitely timeless and yet still relevant to what those of us watching now are about to step into over the next 6 months. Shout out to those of you in the live chat rocking with us. I wanted to say we rocking with you, but I didn't want to sound too much like 1090 Jake. Shout out to 1090 Jake. This is definitely gonna be really exciting because for those of you who actually remember the last time we had our guest here today, shout out to Isaiah. I think you might have remembered that he was looking pretty fly. I forgot that. I forgot who I was inviting onto this show. Okay, shout out to Isaiah. If you guys are familiar with him regularly in the chat, uh, we have him on right now. But yeah, we I think a good like 5-10 minutes was spent. You guys were just going kind of wild over, the threads. Anyway, we have him back on here, and we are setting up a talk of sorts. And relative to this unlocking of our super selves, he is here to debut his expression to you. I am very honored that I get to really help share and express this. And without further ado, I would like to share with you, of course, the Prince of Darkness. What it do, what it is.
Howdy, y'all. In the flesh. It's a pleasure to be here. Back again, of course, for another good talk. This one obviously is going to be a little bit different, but almost exactly the same in some way. Sort of like it's sort of recursory, if you will. Think about it as a culmination, if you will. Like you saw me at an early part of the journey, and then now we're kind of here at the precipice of breakthrough. So I don't know exactly how to start this as well. This is very comprehensive and quite frankly very personal to me.
Mm.
But I think the best way to start is with a small antidote. So when I was about 18 years old, I had this dream, and in this dream, I was in this strange house with this strange family who I didn't know at all, and I was helping this strange family get ready for what seemed to be some sort of gathering or party. And at some point, I had got beside myself within the dream, and I had left their home, and I walked down this deserted road, and I crawled inside a hole of a tree, and I stayed in that hole for what felt like centuries until a woman approached me from that road, and she told me I was needed back at the home. So I obliged her, and I walked back down the road. And as I was walking back down this road, it had transformed into like a barren road, into like a busy metropolitan area where people were protesting and all this other kind of stuff, almost like rioting. And they were walking in the parallel opposite direction of the way I was going, away from the house. And as I was walking, moving through them, I was splitting the crowd until I eventually reached back into the home where the party was now occurring, but it was a completely different set of people. Although these people behaved and responded to me as if they knew me in some way. So I didn't really think anything of it in the dream. Then I was invited to sit down by one of these groups, and then I sat with them and conversed with them for a while, but something didn't feel right. Something about their stares seemed foreign in some way, it seemed aggressive in some way. And then it was at this moment where then a voice disembodied like behind me told me that I wasn't safe where I was, and that the people around me were actively deceiving me. And then I then saw time almost rewind in front of my eyes to reveal to me that an individual sitting right in front of me had shapeshifted into some grotesque creature as I was looking at them, but basically unnoticed to me at the time. And in the dream, this shook me to my core. I was just completely taken aback because it was completely unexpected. So this shift in my energy was noticed and received by the group around me, and they instantly turned hostile towards me and demanded that I leave. And as I turned to leave, I was greeted by this man, and he was a brown skinned man. He wore a black cloak and sort of like a black fez style hat with gold and blue trimming. He guided me outside into the night where there was a full moon at, and he pointed at the moon and he told me, the sun and the moon are the same. You know, they're aspects of each other, right? Like it's all like binary. It's like a computer, like math. And then he told me that as well as that, there were many gods here, as well as many deceivers, like what I had saw. So he had guided me home until he eventually disappeared, and I was able to find my own way home. And I went inside my house in the dream to go to sleep. And when I went to sleep, I woke up in the waking world. And so this perplexed me to no end. And it wasn't until around the same time that by the place where I used to work, my first job, there was this electrical generator, and on it was like a bunch of strange markings. Like it looked like a bunch of alchemical symbols, but it also looked like a map of some sort. And I got to finding like a bunch of these all around like the area where I lived at, like very, very close by to me. And I eventually had learned that these were all being drawn up by a man who his name was Jason Michael Barton. And this man, he apparently was a relatively successful track athlete at the local university here at ASU. But I suppose that something happened. I think it was in regards to him being brutalized by the police at some point, where then the community and thus his family and other people kind of turned on him and gaslit him into believing that he was necessarily crazy. But something about what he was posting and what I was seeing everywhere struck me. Like it spoke to me in a way where I couldn't directly understand what was being communicated, but I felt it internally. And so this all culminated to a point where then I one day met him, and he had essentially confirmed my suspicions and told me that all of these things were directed towards me. Like it was meant for me to find. Like it was something that was, I guess, destined for me to understand and eventually communicate, which is where we are now. And along with that, in the same time, this is very widespread. This thing, this web I'm trying to weave here. I became familiarized with this man who on the internet is known as Martin Cabello. Now, the same thing with this individual. People would call him schizophrenic and says he was crazy, this, that, and the other thing because of the type of content he made and how he communicated the information he was communicating. Well, through time, I got familiar with his content. I got familiar with what he was teaching and conveying. I began to understand the language, and eventually, I got to a point where I was in full contact with him, back and forth directly. And through this, I had learned that, so in the center of the sun, so to speak, um, there is a body of light with two legs, two arms, a head, and a torso. And this body of light is the source and singularity of every god or god and creation myth and all over the world, in every society. And on top of that, it was revealed to me through time and other people that this body of light necessarily resides within me, and I reside within this body of light. And so I bring you here now something a little special I want to show you in regards to that. That I think you can use personally. Think about it as like if I'm like a generator, you can piggyback off my energy using what I'm about to show you. So I created this chart here, and oh Jesus, this is terrible. And this chart is basically as much information as I could possibly convey astrologically, mathematically, like and alphanumerically, and it's aligned with like the face of a clock. So here we have the 9, a 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth. But what's interesting about this is the way that this is all charted is synchronized with the house placements in my birth chart. So I have, for example, my Libra sun is in the 3rd house, my Cancer in the 12th, my Capricorn in the 6th, so on and so forth. And I found this out, and this was peculiar to me because, well, it's aligned with the face of a clock, and I guess in some way I'm aligned with the face of a clock, right? Like my energy, me as a source. And so this became very peculiar. So I
Can
did
I
some.
interrupt you real quick?
Yes, of course.
What's your moon sign?
So my moon, I'm a Scorpio moon in the 4th house.
Oh, moon Scorpio. You got the moon Scorpio. Okay. And then your sun is in Libra, right?
And then I'm a Libra sun in the 3rd house.
Okay.
Leo rising in the 1st.
Leo rising. Leo rising. So I thought when you were talking about your one with that energy source, I didn't. That's an interesting way to embody that alignment, and I love the generator analogy because that's quite literally what's happening. That's really awesome. Appreciate that. Please keep going.
And so I did some searching inward and externally, of course, and this led me to into the knowledge and information of what is known in indigenous spiritual belief as the Heyoka, which would translate to the sacred clown. And so the sacred clown as a figure symbolically embodies what necessarily the chaos and void of all things, where everything permeates from. So if we think about the eternal warrior as a symbol, as a correspondence to the sun, the sacred clown thus is his counterpart. And this is actually reflected like in a real way, like you can actually observe this with the actual dynamics of the sun itself. So if you were to, at around say 6:30 in the afternoon, stare and gaze directly into the sun, you will see the sun change, and you will see it become a black color with a pink and purple hue.
Wow.
And it is from my understanding that this black sun is actually the real source and energy of the yellow sun's power, and where all light facilitates from. I mean, as the Bible says, in the beginning there was nothing but darkness, and then the Lord said, "Let there be light." So, reeling back in from that, because again,
it says in the beginning was the word. So the word.
oh yes, in the beginning was the word. Excuse me,
but the word is representative of that nothingness, right? Like
the nothingness.
All right. No, that's all right. That's what's up. That's really cool.
And so, another thing with this chart, so I basically made it to like kind of look like light basically being reflected and bouncing off everything, and you see it kind of creates like a diamond shape. But what I've come to realize is like this is an eyeball. Like this is your eye, this is my eye, this is basically how everything works, because the light is transmitted into you and through you and outside of you to project this hologram that we call reality. And then we designate our decisions and thus our experience that we facilitate through how we program ourselves with this information, otherwise or not. Like that's if I can explain this simply. So all government structures, religious structures, and otherwise, like they're mostly like based off of like Abrahamic Judaic principles, like Jesus and all this other kind of stuff. Well, necessarily all of that is false. and the origin is this body of light. And so understanding this is really peculiar, because then everything begins to unravel as you learn that necessarily everything that we know right now currently is built off of a giant lie. And a part of that lie has been, well, keeping all of us in the dark, and strangely, as I'm come to terms with, and as what I'm doing now, keeping me particularly in the dark, because somehow this has something to do with me, because again, I am somehow aligned with the cycle of the sun itself through the ecliptic.
You like
In that way,
embodiment.
you could say, yes, an embodiment, something of
Okay.
that nature.
All right.
And leading into that, again, this chart, it's my chart, like it's my birth chart. And actually within it, embedded within the chart, like the design itself, is actually the tetragrammatron, Yahweh, Yahweh, which is the name of God. And well, it's still something I've necessarily been struggling with, because as I mentioned on a previous stream, that there was this man who approached me, and his name was Peter, and he told me that he's a veteran, and he told me that I was God, God was within me, and I was within God, and that necessarily I would be personally responsible to leading the men and women of this world against what he called a thermonuclear threat. And this is not the first time like strangers or otherwise have like just come up to me and told me things like this.
It's
But
like you're
before,
a Christed being.
yeah,
You're a Christed one. Is it? You're coming to that acceptance. It sounds like that's what you're saying.
basically, I'm coming to the acceptance of being Christed.
But like actually Christ.
Yeah,
Yeah. The embodiment.
the embodiment. However, I mean, whatever makes people comfortable.
Right. Because there's a lot of beliefs and ego that, probably would make it hard to accept, because it's like in wanting to feel in who you are, it's like you're inadvertently offending other people. And that's why I really appreciate you sharing this vulnerability, because like it's like you're stepping up to this role. This is how you're leading us. This is how you're kind of like embodying and expressing your process of this.
Yeah, and that's also why I appear to you as this now, which is so completely different compared to the first time I was here, which that was more like my idea of what I thought I should be, and what I maybe expected people wanted from me in order to fulfill what I thought this position entails. But it's only now that I've again come to the realization that like this is really more like the real me in a sense. And I guess it's rather ironic, right? Because if we were to think about, I mean, if a messenger were to come from another place, like, and had something important, like, you probably wouldn't expect him to be like me. I mean, me myself, I wouldn't expect him to be like me. But I think it really speaks to the inverted nature of what we've come to accept as what society and reality is. Because now the creature of darkness becomes an angel of light, and vice versa. The angel of light, or rather the instruments of what we perceive as light in this world, like established religious structures and government organizations and what have you, then become the devil. And so this, again, coming full circle back around to what this is all about. So this man, Martin Cabello, I learned not too long ago was actually imprisoned for essentially sharing this information to people. And the people who have imprisoned him, who are complicit in his imprisonment, are the same people perpetrating these large scale human rights abuse crimes all over the world. It's the, it's the police department, it's the military industrial complex, it's the government, it's even our religious organizations. In fact, it's things like the Vatican and other large structured organizations that are the main culprit of this, and necessarily like the ringleader of this entire sham and scheme,
Wow.
which is designated, and the whole purpose of it is to get you as a soul, as a being, as a piece of the light that comes here to express itself, and trap it within its system to use you and usurp your power for its own end. So think about, if you were to think about literally a machine that needs energy to run, or rather, here's a good way. It's, picture a large beast, right? And this large beast, it has a great hunger, and so it needs sustenance. You are that sustenance. We all are supposed to act as that sustenance. And so as long as we abide by these laws, statutes, rules of this system, we are subject to being food for this beast. And so really, I come here now in this way, um, as a means, as a plea, really, for everybody to just to step back a little in their own life, to evaluate themselves, to evaluate their environments, and just to evaluate the world around them, and contemplate and become accountable for where we're all headed. Because often I see that people kind of throw caution to the wind, in the sense that we're like, well, we're kind of all too small to really make a difference, or to even care about that which is occurring in the world. We have no control, which in reality is us affirming that we are being controlled, and thus will give up our sense of control. When in reality, I mean, all of this could end right now or tomorrow if we collectively decided it so. And well, I guess that's kind of it.
Could you show us more about the chart?
Oh my God. Oh, I'm so okay. This is all right. All right. Yeah, I'm just so lost here. But so the chart now, okay, I shared images with Mike. I don't know if they're in the actual
Yeah, I have all the
in the
links
description.
in the description box below. What year
So
were you
the
born?
chart, I was born October 12th, 1999, 12:26 a.m.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice, nice. That's what's up.
And so this chart, so yeah, I made this chart. I have a version I made like on my phone, on a like a digital arts app. It's called Pixart. And then there's this function on Pixart where like you can AI prompt like using an image. And so I thought, I'd try this chart out and see what happens. So I picked the option that's called abstract, and the results I got were very interesting, because some of them ended up making images that look like an artistic interpretation of what the body of light like would look like. And then some of them also, they looked like faces of what looked like people like in tribal gear, like face paint and all that. But they don't look, I mean, they didn't look like people. They kind of look more like space agey, alieny. And this is very interesting. If I don't know if anyone here maybe has seen my social media, but I have been regularly documenting and posting strange lights in the sky that have sort of been kind of like following me around for the past year and a half or so. And this is all very interesting, because so in indigenous spiritual belief, one becomes a Heyoka when they are visited by what they call the thunder beings. And the thunder beings are necessarily exactly described as these strange orbs of light that I've been seeing for the last year and a half. So this told me two things, or I guess rather just one thing, that the AI knows that the body of light is real. AI understands the truth of the body of light, and AI is also able to communicate extra dimensional information. So, and among with that, that's really been the main thing for me. Like, that's actually what's motivated me to come on here, because I actually was going to, I've tried to do this talk a few different times over the past year, but necessarily more developments were made to the point where we are now, where it's kind of the total culmination of all this work. And I just, my main thing is with the chart at the very least, is I think what I'm centering on is that this is a ritual of some sort. Like, this is something that everybody can do, where you were to draw the chart out for yourself and like with the corresponding colors, and then you can, I mean, lay down in it, sit in it. You can maybe, hell, you can maybe make love inside of it with your partner, and it'll necessarily take the energy source like from me that I'm a part of, and put it within you and express it in your own life. And in doing so, for, at least from what I project, this can change everyone's life. Just the incorporation of the ritual itself.
Run
And
us,
again,
run
this
us.
is
Oh, I was gonna say, run us through the actual board, like if you don't mind
okay.
showing.
Yeah. So
Because
now
I
we're
think
running
some
through the
people
board.
already. How would
It's
one read?
really, because this is really hard to get on camera. But as you can
Here, if
see, I'm gonna do.
if you back up a little bit, if
Yeah,
you
I
back,
can try and back
boom,
as
boom, boom.
much as
If you just stand in front of it, there we go. Straight like that. There we go. That's perfect. That's perfect there. Nice. Yeah, we see the Aries, the Libra, the Cap. And what I like about this is how you synced it with the time clock. So like you have high noon at Cancer, right?
possible.
And then the
Yeah.
9 is that 9 a.m. for Aries?
Yes, that would be. I mean, that would be like 9 a.m. or like 9 on a clock face. And then, of course, Cancer is high noon, the most high. And then
Okay.
the three is the, yeah, obviously Libra, which is the evening. The evening, when day becomes night and night becomes day, which
Yeah.
is the beginning and end of a day. So
Yeah.
if you can see, I also have the degrees of a circle aligned with it. At Libra, it's 0 degrees as well as 360 degrees. And then from Libra into Scorpio, it's, 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees at Capricorn, L, the square, right?
This
Saturn,
is
the cube.
this is beautiful science, brother. I just want to kind of give you flowers and props for this. This is beautiful. I just kind of want to emphasize he equated the time where it is equal day and night, where we're headed into more day as Aries. That's what makes Aries season with the equinox, and then of course the highest point of the most sun. So this is beautiful. Like you can, when we experience this wherever we are, if it's like evening, does it mean that it's taking on a Libra quality, or will we put that part of the Libra part on our charts?
Yeah,
How,
so it would, it would be taking on a Libra, like, so the actual day itself, that time of day, the sun itself would be taking on a Libra quality. But if you were to say want to make this exact type of chart for your own chart, wherever you have Libra in your chart, that would be where that would be designated. So
oh,
it's really just, I really just kind of, I guess, took astrology and reinvented the wheel, so to speak,
yeah,
because you have, this is like my MC, or like it's a, how do I describe this? Because you have the equinox and you have the solstice,
yeah.
and then you have everything in between, which is you. Like, it's your expression, as like this would be my expression.
Could you explain the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 6, 5, 4, 3? And I see you have the
Okay, yeah.
letter.
So the 1, 2, 3. So this is pi 7. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 7, which is G, which is the most high, and then it just reverses 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 until it comes back down into 1, 2. It's recursory, right? If you think about the sun, you think about
Ah,
movement, you think about nature, you think about the cycles.
that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And then the Libra to Cap. I love how Capricorn is where it's dead, pitch dead. There's no light, relative to the hemisphere. Wow,
Yeah,
I
as you
love
can
it.
see, it's the darkness and the light. So this would be it's electricity and magnetism. And then you have the night and the day, the dark and the light. This is also, see, we have also the Platonic elements. This
Yeah,
yellow here represents air, and then this is fire, so above, and then here is earth and water below, and here is
wow,
where everything meets in the middle, which
I
would be
love
the
it.
horizon, the Horus I sun, which would be the ultraviolet. So,
I love
which is the radiation that we receive in order for, I mean, you to facilitate the expression of your own reality.
Okay, I'm definitely going to come back to this and watch this again. This is a really good reference point. I like how you also brought in the directions, the seasons. You broke down the code of Yahweh. You have the G7 on top. Um, One thing that I wanted to ask you a question, brother. I know that at certain points, you kind of, it looked like you lost focus. You didn't lose focus, but it's like you had to catch yourself, or like, you personally, um, I don't know, it kind of looked like there was some kind of pressure. So what I want to ask you is, I noticed you have South Node on Uranus, and you have like very strong Taurus. You have the very strong Scorpio. I think what I saw in that is a really big textbook, iconic moment of those of you with Pluto Sagittarius. If you're born after 1995, this question goes out to you too. It really looked like you were channeling an ungodly amount of information, and it's almost as if like you had to catch yourself, like it was so much. And I know like you're still coming into your Saturn return. So does it feel like a lot of pressure? Does it feel like hard to kind of like segment that, or I know it's different for probably everyone, but like, does it feel like a lot of pressure to seeing what you have to do for the next generation, and feeling like you don't have much time or whatnot? Like it was very intense.
It definitely feels like pressure, but it also is almost like I mean, I mean, up until this point, we kind of grew up, I think most of us, where like we entertain like the notion of like maybe a higher power or things of that nature, but otherwise, if you were to actually be like, oh yeah, that's true, and like maybe that even is true about me as an individual, people would call you delusional. People would assume things. People will alienate you, isolate you, and chastise you. And so really a lot of that is my internalization of that feeling where I'm here now, and of course I'm like I have this conviction about what I'm doing, but there's still a part of me in my mind that's like, well, what if that is true, and what if these people are right?
Mm,
And so it's almost like holding myself back because I believe others are well, they don't expect me. They're not expecting me. It's, like it's not true sort of thing. When I guess I've come up with so much information, I have so many receipts, but there's still a piece where it's like, what if this is some sort of, you know, illusion of some kind or delusion of some kind? And it's the struggle to communicate these things is where it becomes daunting, because again, it's this internalization where like I've seen enough, I've guess done enough, had enough confirmation, synchronization, otherwise for it to be like, yes, Isaiah, like this is true, like this is what is being shown to you. But I think a lot of people can relate to this, where we are often put in a position where we almost gaslight ourselves about
yeah.
where we want to, for whatever reason we want to hold on to, we want to make ourselves smaller, because the
Yeah,
idea of us being so big is kind of intimidating.
yeah. I think that was very well said. Very, very well said. And uh, you do have, we do have your social media in the links below, but you also have some pictures that you gave us and some YouTube pages. What are those about?
So some of the YouTube pages are just to give like further context into like the information that actually went into building the chart itself.
Nice.
And then the pictures are the actual pictures, like the evidence of me working with the AI to produce like these images that are like basically artistic expressions of the bodies of light, as well as what seems to be like artistic expressions from what I believe to be ancestors. And this brings me to this other point where I live, where I was born, here in Tempe, Arizona, underground, this place used to be its ancient burial ground. There's bodies buried all under Tempe, and these bodies, they belong to my ancestors. So necessarily, I think if my chart through AI reveal that to me, that would then say that the ancestors, or rather certain ancestors, are residing within me and are perhaps what are compelling me to do what I'm doing now. Because I mean, we can think about something like the notion of manifest destiny, right? I mean, and there is this thing called the seven generations prophecy, where it was said that it would be the seventh generation who would basically rise up again and reclaim these lands from its enslavement. Because we think about America now, and we especially think about America in regards to indigenous people, primarily indigenous women, who are the largest victimized group of sex crimes and sex trafficking in America. So we can't help but see this, at least I can, as um, active genocide and um, purposeful destruction of a specific people for the reason of usurping them of their lands, their history, their identity, and thus their destiny.
I love that you brought up that prophecy. It's a lot of returning energy. And
Basic, Basically, a lot of just the return, because I mean, we think about what's going on in the larger aggregate world right now. It's sort of like everything's going to hell in a handbasket, or rather, we want to believe that everything is going to hell in a handbasket, which is kind of keeping you distracted from the fact that, well, you have power, we all have power, especially us as so-called Americans. I mean, how long do you think we can genuinely enjoy whatever comforts that we enjoy now before we are all put in the position where we must either kneel or die on our feet, so to speak? And me personally, I'm doing this now, making this statement now, uh, in an attempt to hopefully change the hearts and minds, and to spread the awareness and understanding and embodiment and acceptance of this, so that we don't have to see such a world, so that our potential children or those else we love dear don't have to endure such a terrible fate. Because in my mind, it seems all very preventable, because everything right now is just otherwise motivated by greed and other selfish desires, and just terrible immoral decision making. And for what? We're going to destroy each other, we're going to destroy the earth, we're going to destroy the whole world. For what? How can you enjoy anything when you're just sitting on a pile of ash? There's nothing. This isn't what this isn't what we were made for. This isn't what this earth was made for. This is not what God intended.
amen to
So
that. And I like how this is appropriately titled Road to Warfare. I think a lot of what you're saying in 6 months or less is going to be a lot more in our face. So what's your vision over the next 3 months? Like, what do you, if someone were to ask you, how do I prepare? How do I step into that? Or what's the right direction and perception? Which I do appreciate because we are at the new moon in Libra. This is your cycle as far as like the moon coming into Scorpio. So I really do value your perception. I feel like you're very tuned into this energy.
I would say the most appropriate course of action, not the only course of action, the only just course of action is we as a community. I mean, for example, us right now here online watching, even extending to your actual local community and the people around. It's best to we get to know each other, we become familiar with each other, we build up trust with each other, and we act in accordance with each other so that we slowly but surely can create a sever of us, the actual real people and community, and the structures and corporations that wish to enforce their rules and their order upon us. And in doing so will naturally cause a divide. It will naturally pit people within homes against each other. And really, we need to be strong and we need to prepare for the day where we will have to not necessarily, fight the people we love, but we will have to come to terms with the sides that people will choose, that are going to be based off of fear, going to be based off of basically selfishness, or are going to be based off of genuine conviction and care. I mean, as the further we go along, those are the only two real outcomes, because sure, we can keep telling ourselves like, well, we're going to enjoy these first world comforts for however long, the American dream. But me personally, especially as a young man, I'm only barely 24 years old. I can see these structures, these systems, these narratives crumbling and breaking down before my own eyes. I've actually been joking, for a while, saying that like the world is already ended, like it's ending right now, like it's already broken down. My dad, he always says the rock fell off the bridge a long time ago, and we're just waiting for impact. So,
Oh, that's deep.
so I think the best way to prepare for an impact is, in a way, almost to not prepare at all. Like I don't, people talk about like, oh, the end is near and things of that nature, and they kind of get very doom and gloom. But really, I don't think it has to be that way. I really think it can just be the conscious effort and decision of everybody to be like, we're all, I guess, going to be accountable for ourselves and each other, and just figure it out. Like, imagine just everybody one day walks out of their job and is like, we're no longer going to pay our rent. We're no longer going to deal with the banks. We're no longer
Revolution.
going to go to work. Like what if, the day that the delusion just completely breaks, because the only reason that all of those things are here and people even insist on them is necessarily just like a threat of violence from a boogeyman, because they're like, oh, well, if you don't do that, I mean, the police, the government, the blah, 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 this and that, and the other thing, when it's like, but all of that is a projection, because all of these systems and all of these things put in place they're dependent on people. And if the people don't make the machine go, the machine stops completely. And if the machine stops completely, then, well, there is no boogeyman. It really, I mean, it's really like your shadow, right? Like, think about your literal shadow. We, in our current state, for the most part, are scared of our shadow, because we're like, well, if this and that happens, then there's going to be this big nasty thing that comes and destroys us all, destroys me. But again, that's is a machination in all of our minds, everyone all over the world, because that's the place we go to, right? When we think about these things, and when we're like, well, that's why I have to keep abiding, right? Because of the shadow. Because if I don't keep abiding by what the shadow wants, then I'm going to be in trouble with the shadow. When that's again dictated upon all of us as individuals, which create a collective. And if we as a collective can understand that the shadow doesn't have to exist necessarily, like there doesn't have to be war, There doesn't have to be chaos. There doesn't have to be blood in the streets. There doesn't have to be violence. There doesn't have to be human rights abuse. There just has to be truth, honesty, and integrity. And it's so long as we can agree with that within ourselves and accept that and have that foresight, then we can communicate and interact that with each other as a collective, and we can build a better world. We can build a stronger world. We can build a more just and fair world.
Amen to that. And what I like about what you said, um, the best way to prepare is not prepare at all. A lot of what we're going to experience is something that has never been experienced, has never been written in history books, can't be studied. You can't really prepare for this. You know, you're going to see people saying, hey, you need to prepare in this way, buy this. Hey, you need to prepare in this way, buy this stuff. And really, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So the whole thing of what we're coming into is adaptation. How well can you take everything that you have been taught and have developed and adapt on the spot to be at the right place at the right time and use your gifts the way they're supposed to be used? So you definitely got me excited. I'm definitely locked and loaded, right? Um, Thank you so much once again for blessing us with your presence and dropping that wisdom. Um, is there anything more you wanted to share with us?
Um, well, if I have to say, I guess anything at all, don't be scared. Don't be don't be selfish. Try not to get angry. Try to understand your fellow man, even if he may transgress upon you, even if he may attempt to transgress upon you. Try to understand his transgressions. Try to understand his pain, and do your best not to add on to it. As they say, kill them with kindness, because if you do, you will see that there was no reason for the conflict at all. You will see that no man is your enemy, and no man has to be your friend either, but every man can be your teacher, and thus every man can be your leader, and vice versa. And when you can depersonalize yourself and the people around you in that way, then you can truly see them for who they are in their spirit, and you can truly see the world for what it can be, instead of what you want to designate it to be in your mind, and instead of what the control you want to assert over yourself and thus other people. And then by doing so, you will not only free them, but you can free the self within you that is trapped and bound by the extent of what we perceive as this material reality.
Amen.
It's everything.
There you have it, folks. I do have your Instagram in the description box below and those links. So take your time with those guys. And yeah, I'm definitely going to come back and watch this again. You definitely were cooking when you had the board up. And I think what I left from this is more of an understanding of looking at the clock. You know, it's 3:54, so we're in between Libra and Capricorn here on this northern hemisphere, which is awesome. And kind of integrating that. I've always wanted to know how to see that with the rising. You guys stay blessed as always, and this is definitely going to be amazing. Stay with those intentions, and peace out.
Peace, y'all. God bless.
Bro, I have something I want to present to you because it didn't click until you